to Mr. Randall Parker, who is running for the Toledo School Board. Thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to meet you. I've heard lots about you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank
you so much. And Polly Taylor Gherkin, who is also running for school board. Hey, Polly.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so we are going to introduce them a little bit, the audience to you a little bit. Let's start with your resume, Polly. Polly's resume is 2 full pages long, and she'll get to talk to you about that as we move forward a little bit. But I just wanted to tell you a little about her overall approach to this community and her life and her passion for the school board. She is a longtime advocate for Toledo Public Schools, for school improvement, parent-school community collaboration, 25 years as a school psychologist. She is actually a licensed school psychologist, consultant, trainer, educational specialist. She has a master's in education as well, focused an awful lot of your time on children.
And on schools in general. Actually, I'd like to say that I really learned how schools worked in my first 18 years with the district when I was a school secretary. So that's where I really learned.
All right, that's who really runs the world, are those school secretaries.
Eventually became a school psychologist. So
I'd like to introduce you by way of resume to Mr. Randall Parker. Mr. Parker is the senior pastor and founder of the Manifested Word Church. He's an active parent inside of TPS, president of the PTO at Glenwood Elementary School, past president of Community for Change, which is a community advocacy organization.
That is correct.
Which advocates for?
Human rights, and also
how cool is that?
Dealing with really trying to make our community what it needs to be.
And you are a proud graduate of
Roy C. Start High School.
Do you guys have like like the Bulldogs and the?
We're proud to be Spartans.
Okay, you're proud to be Spartans. All right, so welcome both of you. So, assuming that you both are elected to school board, what would grab your attention first, Mr. Parker?
The reason why I'm running for the school board is because as it was stated, I'm an active parent, and I believe in the children.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in doing what's best for the children. TPS has a long-standing history of excellence. I believe I'm a product of TPS all of my life, and I really believe that when I'm elected, that I can be that community liaison between the parents, the teachers, and the students, and really stand to be that light on the board, so that we can be able to make the community what it needs to be.
What does that mean, though? I mean, what are the issues there in the school district? It's great to think that all of you are going to be community liaisons. You all should be community liaisons for the district. But are there issues inside of the district that you think need the attention of this community? Polly?
Well, I'd like to start with sort of that general note of continuing to reach out to the community and really build the trust of the community by getting behind a new and energetic superintendent, by continuing our efforts with Promise Neighborhoods and schools as hubs, and really taking the opportunity to align the stars to chip away at those barriers or those contributing factors that once we get the kids, we often talk about, it's hard to teach them because they're hungry, it's hard to teach them because they're poor, it's hard, and so I think we have to look at that big picture and continue to engage the community. As far as big picture, but I have lots of things I want to, go after in the specific sense as well.
Can we talk about that big picture piece, though? Because this is something that I've always wondered about. For some reason, and I'm not clear exactly what that reason is, the school has suddenly become responsible for tending to the kids that are hungry and tending to the kids who are coming without clothes or who are improperly clothed, and for health care. And I know that all of those things have an impact on the learning, but is that really the school's responsibility?
I'm sorry. I really believe that everything begins with the foundation of home.
Yeah.
And so even if we offer those avenues in the school system, if it's not being echoed in the home, then it's like we literally every day have to refocus and retrain and reinvent some things. But I believe everything starts with the foundation of home.
I agree with you. And how do we start making parents more responsible for their piece of educating their children? The reality is that they have some responsibility, and I don't hear people talking about that loudly enough. And I don't know if we're afraid that they won't vote for us if we say those things, but the schools cannot be responsible for everything, can they?
Right, and that's one of the things I think is about to change, because before now you see the services to families and schools and kids being done in these discrete, sometimes overlapping and oftentimes even competitive silos. And the idea that we're going to sort of collect all of our resources and chip away at these barriers in a way that points directly at educational outcomes, as our Cradle to Career Aspire movement is really marshaling those resources now to do. I hesitate to really to just say, oh, the families aren't doing their part, because we got to remember that our district is made up of a good number of families that have experienced generational poverty, and folks that have been in generational poverty are so overwhelmed by the tyranny of survival that even if that overcomes any ability to actually act outside the concrete everyday experience.
See, I disagree with that. I disagree with that, but I hear that. I hear that a lot. There are millions and millions of Black and brown families that experience generational poverty, whose kids who are very focused on those children, who want the very best for those children, and who manage to carve a pathway for those children out of that poverty. It happens every single day. It happens all the time. But what you're saying is actually, I agree with in part, but simply
it's not
in whole. And we have to, even those folks who are in generational poverty, have to understand that if their kids are going to be better, they've got to focus on the education of those kids. If their lives are going to be better, they have some responsibility for making sure that child gets to school every day.
And again, that's sort of an
essential.
abstract concept that they do believe in, and of course, I'm talking about a pattern. I'm not talking about exceptions. There's exceptions to everything, but we do have to provide some of that bridging capital in order for folks to be able to see outside and be able to make those cause and effect decisions outside of this tyranny. And that's where I'm talking about all the different ways that we chip at the barriers, rather than being in discrete silos. Let's point all those arrows towards these educational outcomes. And I really think we're on our way with that.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I don't want to leave people with the impression, in terms of my personal opinion, that I think that being poor is an excuse for not achieving. I don't think that at all. And I think we have lots and lots of examples as to poverty not being a barrier. Poverty makes things difficult, but we can't allow that to be a barrier for kids not to achieve. There are some other issues, though, moving on from that. We could talk about that all day. It's one of the things I'm passionate about. But moving on to other issues that you all find in the school system that you'd like to address. You started.
Okay, I would really like to continue the efforts that Toledo Public Schools have just really gotten off the ground with what's known as positive behavior supports, or positive behavior intervention supports, PBIS. There are many states across the country that have started operating their behavior support system on this framework. Ohio has recently included it oddly enough, in the restraint and seclusion and restraint law, the requirement that Ohio schools put a plan forward for positive behavior supports. Right now, TPS has got 5 or 6 schools, I think, that have been through the first year of bringing those supports to bear. And really what this means is that we're building a foundation of environments where the behavior we want to see is more likely to occur, and the behavior we don't want to see is less likely to occur. But it's even more than that. We treat behavior like we do math and reading and teaching a kid to drive. We teach it. And we teach it first by clarifying the expectations, and then by reinforcing instances of the behavior we want. And so if we have a foundation that moves all the way up to include all of those things, then those kids that still stand out and that are really off the hook, as they say, we'll actually have more resources, more energy to build systems of support that maybe all kids eventually can benefit from. I get concerned because we're spending so much time at the top of the tier And that's what you hear about. You know, the kids that are off the hook, and that's why frankly, some families are leaving the district. The parents are like, I'm sick of getting phone calls because I can't handle my kid, or families are leaving the district because all the other kids are off the hook, and they get that perception.
So there used to be what was the school downtown where the kids with behavioral problems were
Jefferson
sent to?
Center.
Was it Jefferson?
Yes.
Jefferson Center. So do you agree in a paradigm that segregates those kids from the other kids?
No, I
No,
don't.
you don't.
No.
You don't.
I don't.
Absolutely not.
I really believe that there shouldn't be any discrimination. They should come together, and I do believe that the ability to learn really reaches a point in a place where if they want it, that they can have it. But if there's those that need more attention, then we ought to have people that are equipped to be able to handle that, to help them even with their behavior issues.
And it's that multi-tiered system. Sure, there is always going to be a continuum, Donnie, where there are some kids where they just need so much intense services that they can't be served in a traditional setting. But if your foundation is in place and you grow the green, we say, I keep, my visual is this triangle. The bottom 80% is green, and then you got a little strip of yellow, and then you got these 1 to 5% red zone kids. Well, our triangle is a little lopsided. We're lucky to get a third, a third, a third. So until we grow the foundation, we really can't adequately serve. We have too many kids at the top of the tier.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
should
I
be
would
the other end of this other end of the continuum.
We're gonna go to break right now, but when we come back, I'd like to talk about this a little bit more, because if I'm a parent, I want to maximize the opportunity for my child to learn. And how do I do that if we've got disruptive kids in the classroom right next to my child? Okay, I want to start off with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Barker? Great. Okay, we will be right back on the other side of this very short break. I will see you then.